Yes,
Oh,
we're ready.
oh, it surprised you, yeah.
Good evening. It's Thursday, April 8th, at 7 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the governing body of the city of Spring Hill. Our first order of business, as always, is our invocation. Those of you who wish to, please stand and join us in prayer.
Those who wish, bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you we can come together now as a community. Help us as leaders to make good, sound decisions. Help us to be wise and in our thought processes and to just be mindful of everybody as a community as a whole. Bless this community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And if you would continue to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Leeton,
Here.
Mr. Owen,
Here.
Mr. Graves,
Here.
Mr. Eckert.
Here.
Mayor, we do have a quorum present.
Thank you very much. For those of you who have not heard the news yet, unfortunately, Councilmember Hughes has resigned her position as her family is moving out of state. I would just like to publicly recognize Ms. Hughes for her years of service to the residents of the city of Spring Hill and to commend her for the leadership that she demonstrated during that time. She will be missed. Next item is approval of the agenda, and I have a request to remove the discussion item, Open Records Act policy. That was item number 7. That's not quite ready for discussion. Does the council have any requested changes to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as revised.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0-0. This takes us to citizen participation. This is an opportunity in the meeting for residents to address the council on items not already on the agenda. Anyone wishing to do so, we just ask that you step up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, and then you will have the attention of the council. Hearing,
Hello, Steve Boswell, 504 North Jackson. I unfortunately had to witness a sensitive event, and when the police handled that event, I just want to give them a really good pat on the back because they, with the utmost respect and the utmost abilities, they handled the situation in the best possible way and solved it really well without anything from, no arrest or anything like that. They took care of the situation in the best possible way and manner, and I just want to give them kudos for that because it's one of their tools in their toolbox, and they're very good. So that is all I had to say, guys.
thank you, Mr. Boswell. We appreciate that. The floor remains open. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the agenda and move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0-0. This takes us to the first of our 2 formal council action items, consideration of the approval of reimbursement agreement, Dayton Creek Special Benefit District. I believe we have Mr. Ellsworth online. Is that correct? All right, Mr. Ellsworth. Yes, sir. Okay, and my understanding is that this being on the agenda has certainly generated some other discussion, and that discussion centers on what the appetite of the council is for continued investment in benefit districts, weighing that risk to the taxpayers versus the reward. You know, we talked about this, I think it was in 2019. I know that as we move forward with certain benefit districts, we started to have more and more safety mechanisms put in place, whether that be an escrow account or a letter of credit. I think those are the two primary mechanisms. So if that helps to maybe get us to a little bit more current, I'd like to turn it over to the council, and I think Mr. Owen, if you'd get us
Yes.
off in that discussion.
I guess a couple things is, maybe Ms. Landis, you can help me out with it. Right off the top, do we know how much money we have tied up in these benefit districts that we have presently?
Are you talking about all benefit
All,
districts?
all for Dayton Creek?
Just for Dayton Creek?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that we're somewhere around $8 million total principal in the 4 existing districts.
Okay.
2 of the 4 are currently on the tax rolls. The other 2 have not been placed on the tax rolls yet, in that process. And I can go back and get you a more definitive number here.
Yeah.
I don't have it in summary.
Okay, so we've basically committed to about $8 million and
I would,
Roughly.
that's my, roughly, yes.
And when we say 2 of the 4 on the tax rolls, those are they 100% built out and sold, or are there still some held by the developer?
I don't have an update on benefit district number 2. The most recent numbers I have is when we first looked at this 4th benefit district, which was plat number 6, and that was, a year and a half to 2 years ago. At that time, benefit district number 1 was built out fully with the exception of 5 model homes. And I don't have everything for number 2 because again, during that time, I'm sure that more has happened. Now, since it's on the tax rolls, I can tell you that I did send you some information
Right.
earlier. I was able to look that up, that out of everything, their payments, Dayton Creek payments for 1 and 2 were 100% caught up for both districts at the end of 2020. The new amount that went on the tax roll in 2020 for the 2021 payments would be December of 2020 and May of 2021. Out of the December payments, out of both districts, there are 4 lots that haven't been paid. One of them was recently sold, and I would imagine that's more of a record-keeping deal
No problem.
on our part. So, so just 3 out of all of those lots, which there is roughly 108 lots between the 2 districts.
Okay,
So, and I'm just wanting to get a
Yes.
little texture here.
right, no, it's
So,
fine.
The 108, what that means is that risk is now spread out between 108 different families, not all held with one developer.
Correct.
So I know
Correct.
I know everyone up here
Yeah.
knows that. I just want to illustrate that so that maybe we're all ensuring that we're all on the same page.
And maybe one other question to help clarify some things is, in a district that is not built out, yeah, not saying anything would happen, this would be the worst case, defaults, walks away, whatever you want to call it, who's responsible for that money?
The city is responsible for making the debt payments. Once we have issued long-term financing, we are responsible for the bond and the principal and interest payments of that bond. And the money that we assess on the tax rolls annually to cover those payments, whatever goes unpaid, then it is the mill levy and the debt service fund that covers those payments.
Perfect, thank you.
Until they're collected at some future point.
Okay,
Which is typically a minimum of 3 years before the county will initiate foreclosure proceedings. And keep in mind, we have no authority to compel the county to do that.
Correct.
I guess I look at it as, I believe benefit districts are a very good tool for development in the city of Spring Hill. For us, if we have a developer come in, for whatever reason, if we can make it more appetizing to, hey, we can give you a benefit district to help you get some of your infrastructure in, to get you started. That's where I'm at, is we now have 4 benefit districts for 1 development. That to me is a concern that we've done more than we need to. I think 1 or 2 would be bonus, a benefit. 3 and 4, maybe they shouldn't have happened. I'm not sure I would be real happy about doing a fifth one.
I think 3 and 4 are where we received a letter of credit and
Right.
we got money escrowed. So that shows to me that the council continued to have some concerns about continuing with benefit.
And I think if I understand, letters of credit are not a guarantee of anything, really? Are they?
Well,
Or are they not?
Letters of credit don't quite operate like a line of credit does. They
right.
can be pulled, and typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jenkins, letters of credit are most susceptible to getting pulled at the time people may need them the most. But a letter of credit is actually based upon a commitment of
Right.
assets backing it up.
Right.
So it's different than like a line of credit.
Okay.
So yes, it could be risky on a
Okay.
letter of credit. Is my allocution correct? All right.
Ms. Landis, I think one more question for me is, do you see a limit of how many benefit districts the city could support? I mean, there seems to have to be a number or somewhere where you want to look and say, maybe we've reached our limit on how many we can
Let me
give.
ask that a little bit.
Okay.
Do benefit districts count against us from our credit rating agencies?
I would say that there's probably they do look at our overall debt, and we have talked about our overall debt being a concern for the rating agency overall. And that is something that we've talked about probably annually for quite some time, and the overall debt. I don't recall us having any specific concerning conversations with the rating agencies about benefit districts in general. So I can't say that that's really been one specific thing that's been brought to our attention. And I'm sorry, I do want to correct myself. We're just sitting right around 7.5 million instead of
Okay.
8 million.
Okay. That's $500,000 among friends.
Yes, yeah, round up, that's no big deal. As I said, I'm not against benefit districts. I think in this case, maybe we've run the limit.
Okay.
I know this particular thing here is not a benefit district, it is basically to have a.
Right.
But I think if the appetite's not really here, should we even pursue this?
Right, and
You
give
know,
the developer the opportunity to reevaluate its approach.
yeah, yes,
Other comments?
I do. So we have 4 special benefit districts in this Dayton Creek so far. This is the 5th one. How many more phases do they have platted out? Do you know that answer?
Ms. Landis, do you know?
They, part of the phasing of it, it appears like there could be 3 more phases. It's market driven. It isn't working. It's market driven, so everyone can hear me.
yeah,
And we'll get my great voice on recording. Market driven, so I would say if the market stays strong, there's probably only 3 more phases in this subdivision. If it weakens a little bit, they might expand it out to 4. In the preliminary plat, what we do is they have the overall preliminary plat, and then whatever they feel like that the market can bear, then they'll bring that in for the final platting part.
And granted, I think we all understand that a developer isn't trying to move forward into a project that they don't think will be successful. I think to Mr. Owen's point, though, when we continue to add more debt, it's not a matter of that I'm concerned that Dayton Creek isn't going to continue to be successful. My concern comes in is, what if we have another development that would also be extremely beneficial to the public, but now we feel a bit hamstrung to do a benefit district to help them because we've got so much tied up in other areas. That's just my 2 cents, but Mr. Eckert, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it was very informative. Is there a possibility of an escrow along with a line of?
Letter of credit?
Credit?
I don't know that you would typically be able to do both, because if Payment Systems was a long time ago, Mr. Jenkins, a letter of credit still has to be backed up by assets, correct?
Yes.
So it's not a matter of kind of like a general collateralized loan. There actually have to be the assets there to back it up. So if you're escrowing money, I don't think you would escrow it and also try and do a letter of credit, because those instruments you're basically using the same asset.
I'd agree with that.
Okay.
The other possible avenue would possibly be a surety, because the surety company could then step in.
I don't know that you can
But-
get a bond for something like this.
I don't know if you could get a surety bond on it.
I don't know that. Mr. Ellsworth might be able to answer that.
Because then the surety backs that up with a line of credit, just like we would be, but what would happen is if they were to falter, then the surety pays out and then they go after the person with the
Right.
line of credit.
Right.
So,
Mr. Ellsworth, do you have any opinion on whether or not there's some sort of bonding capability through a surety? Okay. Okay. So do we want to send a message back that we'd like to discuss what sort of additional collateral?
My opinion is, I think we've about reached our limit on the benefit districts for this development.
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
Other comments?
I think we've reached our limit on benefit districts for this particular development, and to make it available so that we can have those benefit districts available for other positions, other developments.
Potential projects.
And so this would be I wouldn't want him to spend his money to do something that really may not even be something we have an appetite for, no matter what.
Right, right. And again, I want to stress, and I don't let me speak for you, Mr. Owen, but I think I can on this.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with how successful we believe this project is.
No.
It has been a wonderful addition to our community, and I anticipate it will continue to be successful.
I think it has some nice features that's going to make it.
Absolutely, absolutely. But when we look at what tools we have in the toolbox to promote development and other amenities for residents of our community,
Yes.
I think continuing to chip away at that, what I would colloquially refer to as our available credit, for one particular subdivision, I think that has the potential to put our residents at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yes.
To-
I agree. I'm on your boat. I think they serve a good purpose, or an opportunity, but as we continue to do more and more, I don't know if I have the appetite for that as well.
when we did the fourth one, Ms. Landis and I had these discussions, and I think you did too. With me, that I was kind of there on the fourth one where you are now.
Yeah.
So I would say that we would go back to the developer and have some discussions with them.
Well, I think,
See,
I think at this point, I'll just go ahead and call the question, and it will probably die for lack of a motion.
well, I'm just talking about after that.
Right,
Having the
right.
discussions with them about other avenues of what they could do.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and call the question then. Would consider a motion to approve the reimbursement agreement, Dayton Creek Special Benefit District Phase 5, seventh plat with PV Investments. Item dies. So, Mr. Henshot and Mr. Burton and Ms. Landis, whomever is working with PV Investments, please again stress to the applicant our appreciation and our desire to see this continue to be a successful, and I believe will be a successful subdivision. So, very good. Next item is item number 6, consider approval of engineering agreement with Lamp Reinerson for the 2019 Cars 199th and Ridgeview Roundabout. Mr. Miller, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, I do not have a copy of my full agenda packet with me.
Here, I can get it.
Apologize, my printer was hung up on something today and we couldn't get anything to print all afternoon. I come before you this evening as a subsequent discussion to item number 4 that was approved on your consent agenda, where we approved the contract for Line Weaver Construction to construct the 199th and Ridgeview Roundabout. As has happened before on large city projects, both developer and city done, typically the city engineer provides the construction administration and construction observation services. We actually are just finishing up that work on the topic you just discussed last, on the Dayton Creek 6 Benefit District, Lone Elm Road, and all the improvements around the school there. So, we have prepared a task order to perform the same type, or a contract to provide the same type of services for the roundabout. Trans Systems, as you know, developed the final construction drawings. And now that we have a contractor and we'll shortly have a pre-construction conference and a notice to proceed, we do need some construction observation services. The contract for the engineering agreement has below the budget that we had originally on the roundabout for that work. And the recommendations being presented in accordance with Section 3 of the purchasing policy. The services will be funded by the project funds that are allocated currently in the capital improvements program. With that, staff recommends the governing body approve the engineering agreement from Lamprey Nearson Inc. in the amount of $63,624 for the 2019 CARS project. I'm open to questions.
Yes, this is the CARS project, construction phase services. That can be folded into the construction costs, right? So wouldn't there be the ability for us to get reimbursed by the county for these?
There is, but the CARS cap is below that. We're using up all the CARS money in the construction, in the construction
Okay.
contract.
So
But yeah, it is
hit the cap
reimbursable.
already?
If for some reason we were to get more CARS money or other
I get
types,
it.
yes, it
I
would
get
be, it is eligible.
I was trying to remember from all of that and I couldn't remember.
Right, we wish we had a higher CARS cap, but
Oh, that's okay.
that was
That answers
established in 2018 when they first applied
It
for
was a
CARS
long
funds.
time ago.
Well,
Yes.
I'm old, but not that old,
Oh, I get you.
right.
Move to approve the engineering agreement from Lamprey Nearson Incorporated in the amount of $63,624 for the CARS 2019 project for the roundabout.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Motion carries 400. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Miller, ask one question. Do we have a schedule of the work to be done on this roundabout?
We have a phasing plan. Essentially, the 199th, and the intersection will be closed fully, like the last day for teachers at the high school, May 27th-ish, 29th, I don't remember.
Could we get a schedule maybe from,
Oh, we could, yeah, absolutely.
when you get it around?
And we'll have at least north-south done by the time school opens up
Perfect.
again, and then the next two phases about a month later.
All right,
Yeah, we can provide that for
okay,
you.
thank you.
All right, this takes us to announcements and reports. I just wanted to comment, and it's interesting, I was gonna bring this up, and Mr. Leeton and I were texting about it, or talking about it rather earlier on, the deployment of more, less lethal options for the police department, and as we saw in the disbursement report, less lethal shotguns, what that meant. Chief, I just want to commend you and your department for continuing to look at the full complement of tools that may be available to prevent the loss of life. And, you know, I think Mr. Leeton and I both, it seems a little bit of a non sequitur to call a shotgun less lethal, but understanding how that asset can actually be deployed, whether that's beanbags, whether it's rubber, rubber buck, or rubber bullets, and how that can be deployed to help to prevent the loss of life, I think just shows our department's commitment and reverence for life and a desire to continue to find more appropriate ways to de-escalate situations. So I just want to commend you on that, want to let you know it did not go unnoticed. And that's all I have. Mr. Owen?
Nothing, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Leeton?
Just on that note, I was educated on what the less than lethal shotgun was, because I had never heard of a shotgun that wasn't lethal, so, sounds like it's gonna be a good tool to have, and just keep doing those types of things for our community.
Mr. Eckert?
No report, sir.
Mr. Graves?
No report.
We'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Hendershot?
No report, Mayor.
All right. Madam Clerk?
No report.
Ms. Landis?
No report, thank you.
Chief Henson?
I have one.
Oh, no, she's bringing a lot of paper.
I am, well, you guys, some copies there. So I have a few things. One, I wanted to bring forward the first quarterly report to showcase what we, from a statistical standpoint, what has occurred this first quarter of '21 in comparison to last quarter of '20. Our calls for service have gone up. We have handled, and this is as of the end of March, handled 1,749 calls for service. That's up approximately 300 calls from last year. Our response time has gone up as well, from this time last year to this time today, this year. Assault and batteries, they have gone, we do have one more than we did last year. Batteries, auto crimes, auto theft, auto burglaries, everything else has gone down. That's the only one particular case where we went up by one. Response times, as I mentioned, they have gone up, but they do fluctuate month to month, week to week. So I don't put a lot of stock in that. But I do notice that as calls were increased, we did have a number of calls that included both officers, and at the same time, other calls would come in. So there was not an officer available to respond until they could clear that call. And that will impact some of the response times. Regarding our traffic safety initiative, our priorities, if you remember, I went over some priorities in January. We are down in fatalities and injuries, which is good. Non-injury accidents, however, we are up fairly significantly from 6 last year to 23 this year. Some of that could be a residual from COVID when everybody went lockdown and you don't have as many cars. The DUI enforcement has gone up. Traffic activity has also gone up since this time last year. And then as a rule, about 30% of our drivers are issued a citation. And the rest are issued warnings or other results. So a lot of you'll notice I have an asterisk next to the traffic warnings and citations, and that is based on the location in which I can draw the data from. It is dependent upon how the officer clears. So if the officer clears with a report and a citation, it's coded as a report, not as a citation. If they clear as an arrest, it will be coded as an arrest, not the citation. So those numbers are the low. They would be higher. Self-initiated activity, these are the types of activities that we have conducted so far this year with area checks of being 22, building checks, business checks, foot patrol, ped checks, and 3 house watches. Animal control, you'll see the comparison between there. We've actually decreased our calls for service on animal controls nearly 50%. Our dog and at-large are all down. Bites are down, impounds are down. Nuisance is about the same. That's your barking dogs and things of that nature. Wild animals are about the same, and farm animals are down. So that kind of gives you an overview of where we're at through first quarter. And is that something what you were kind of looking for?
This is exactly what I was, and others in the community were asking about, is just activity and seeing how present you are out there. And I think this is good feedback for the community to know what exactly it is you guys are doing. I mean, there's always that question. So excellent. I think that's very important the community sees this.
Okay. Additionally, I wanted to point out a couple other announcements. We have recently recognized Sergeant Williams for living our values. He demonstrated service, patience, and compassion when he was interacting with a mother and her daughter on an incident where he listened and allowed the mother to feel like she was talking to a friend and not a cop. We are, and hopefully he's not listening because this evening we're going to present it to him. But Officer Whiff was also recognized for living our values when he demonstrated professionalism, compassion, and example when he took the time to thoroughly investigate a domestic disturbance and appropriately take action without bias and treated all parties with respect. And we got a phone call from one of the individuals who was, his expectations of what he thought was going to happen was dispelled by what should have happened by the way that Officer Whiff handled the call. So that was really good. And I believe Officer Whiff is the one that Mr. Boswell referred to on the call earlier as well. And then lastly, we're taking Coffee with a Cop back out. So we're going to have our first one on April 12th That's this Monday from 7 to 9 at the Price Chopper. So if you're available and you want to come by and say hello, Johnson County and Miami County Sheriff's deputies have also been invited. So there might be just a bunch of us. But everybody is welcome to come by and say hello. And with that, I think that's all the announcements I have.
All right, any
Oh,
questions?
wait, I forgot one more. A big one. We hired someone. We have Officer Sam Tallman will start on April 19th. And he will be attending the police academy. And then Officer Rodriguez, who is currently in our academy, is scheduled to graduate on May 11th. And we're still interviewing 2 more openings.
Terrific, terrific.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
I just had a quick question. We had a pretty significant accident on 199th Street and 169. Was it last week?
I couldn't tell you if it was last week or the week before.
Yeah. Was there a fatality or anything
No.
involved with that?
No.
I haven't had a chance to ask anybody about it. Okay.
No, it was not a fatality. There were injuries. I don't believe they were significant injuries, and KHP worked the accident. I was told it.
Because we just need to make sure that we're tracking what's happening with that intersection and such, so that we can keep pushing it, like the mayor says, to KDOT, of keeping that intersection full view for them, because, you know, we just don't want any loss of life out there, nor do we want any injuries. I mean,
Right.
we want it to be as safe as possible.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Burton?
Come up here real quick. I just wanted to review what the Building Department of Community Development, I know that you received this, but we're already at 83 new single families this year. A total right now of 262 total permits at about $23 million. And 16 of those are in our water district. So we're already ahead of last year, which last year was a record year for Spring Hill. So, and more subdivisions are coming in, and we're actually working on some additional plating in our water district. So that's all I had.
Keep it up, Pat. I'm gonna name a street after you. It'll be Webster, and you'll be responsible for the repairs. I did forget to mention, there is an updated budget calendar for everybody. Please take a look at that. And, I think it's gonna be important as we go forward that, each of us get out to our constituencies, understand what priorities are for our residents, and make sure that we're doing everything we can to advocate for those. And then also one other thing that I forgot to mention, the schedule for walk-in talks has been completed. That's going to be in the next newsletter. Those of you who wish to attend those with Mr. Hendershot and myself, make sure you let the city clerk know, because if we have a quorum, we need to have notice. So if you think there's any chance that you might be there, please let Ms. Garrity know. With that, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.